Ryan Alcott arrived in Ashbourne, Vermont, on a crisp January morning in 2023, bringing with him the kind of polished charm that made people immediately trust him. His striking tailored coat, effortless smile, and smooth demeanor suggested success, but also hinted at something intangible, an aura of mystery that intrigued the people he encountered. Ashbourne was a picturesque town nestled in the foothills of Vermont, its cobblestone streets and colonial-era homes blanketed in snow. It was a community where people still waved to their neighbors, where everyone knew everyone, or thought they did. Ryan saw it as the perfect playground for his carefully orchestrated plan. He purchased a sprawling Victorian home on the outskirts of town, its stately architecture commanding respect. Within days of his arrival, Ryan was seen at the local cafe chatting with locals, attending town meetings, and offering generous donations to community projects. He wasn't just a newcomer, he was an enigma wrapped in sophistication. What no one saw was the meticulous preparation that had gone into his move. Ryan had chosen Ashbourne not for its charm but for its strategic advantages. Its size allowed him to blend in yet remain noticeable enough to establish connections. Its social circles, though tight-knit, were just distant enough to keep secrets hidden. The first step in Ryan's plan began at the Ashbourne Public Library, where he walked in on a chilly February afternoon. He was greeted by Aurora Thorne, the librarian and the pride of the town. Aurora was everything Ryan had anticipated, poised, intelligent, and, most importantly, deeply rooted in her family's legacy. Aurora came from one of Ashbourne's most respected families. Her father, Judge Lawrence Thorne, was a pillar of the community, known for his sharp mind and unyielding sense of justice. Her mother, Vanessa, was a symbol of grace and refinement, a woman who carried the weight of societal expectations effortlessly. Aurora had inherited her family's sense of duty and tradition, managing the library with a passion that transformed it into more than just a repository of books. It was a community hub, a reflection of her own disciplined and giving nature. Ryan's entry into the library wasn't by chance. He'd researched Aurora meticulously, knowing she was the perfect candidate for his plan. He approached her with a story about researching local history for a business project, asking questions that revealed his genuine curiosity. Aurora, accustomed to patrons who barely acknowledged her expertise, was struck by his thoughtful questions and attentiveness. "You're quite knowledgeable about digital archiving," Ryan remarked during their first meeting, his voice smooth and warm. "It's rare to meet someone so passionate about preserving history." Aurora felt her cheeks flush, a reaction she hadn't expected. She had spent years surrounded by people who saw her as little more than the judge's daughter. Ryan's attention was like a beam of light in a world that often felt monotonous. By the end of their conversation, Ryan had secured a second meeting under the pretense of needing further assistance. Over the next few weeks, he visited regularly, each time bringing coffee and stories about his work as a financial consultant. He made her laugh with tales of his eccentric clients and impressed her with his knowledge of art and literature. While Ryan's connection with Aurora deepened, he turned his attention to the Wild Spruce Café, a cozy coffee shop in the heart of Ashbourne. It was owned by Sophia Wilder, a spirited entrepreneur who had turned a crumbling storefront into a thriving business. Sophia was everything Aurora wasn't: free-spirited, modern, and fiercely independent. Ryan first walked into the café on a brisk March morning. Sophia, with her rolled-up sleeves and flour-dusted apron, was working the counter. She noticed him immediately, not just because of his well-cut suit but because of the way he carried himself, confident but unassuming. "Just passing through, or are you new in town?" Sophia asked as she handed him his coffee. "New, actually," Ryan replied, flashing his signature smile. "And I have to say, this place is incredible. Did you design it yourself?" Sophia's face lit up. The cafe was her pride and joy, and Ryan's compliment felt genuine. Over the next few weeks, he became a regular, always showing up during the cafe's quiet mid-morning hours. He listened attentively as Sophia shared her dreams of expanding the business, her insecurities about competing with chain coffee shops, and her struggles as a self-taught baker. "You're doing something unique here," Ryan told her one day. "People like you are the reason small towns like Ashbourne thrive. Don't underestimate yourself." Sophia felt a warmth she hadn't expected. She was used to fighting her battles alone, but Ryan's words felt like the validation she had craved for so long. By March, Ryan had woven himself seamlessly into two lives. To Aurora, he was the old-fashioned gentleman who valued tradition and shared her appreciation for stability. To Sophia, he was the modern thinker who admired her independence and encouraged her dreams. Each woman believed she had found her perfect match. Neither suspected the intricate web Ryan was spinning, or the dark purpose that drove his charm. As spring turned to summer, Ryan's dual lives thrived, laying the groundwork for what would become his most daring deception yet. Ryan Alcott had mastered the art of reading people. To Aurora Thorne, he was the embodiment of tradition and stability, a man who seemed born to fit the mold of her family's expectations. To Sophia Wilder, he was an innovator, a dreamer who respected her independence. What neither woman realized was that Ryan had crafted these personas specifically for them, playing to their vulnerabilities and desires with precision. Aurora Thorne had always felt the weight of her family name. As the daughter of Judge Lawrence Thorne, her life had been a series of carefully curated choices meant to uphold the Thorne legacy. The Ashbourne Public Library, her pride and joy, was one of the few things she had built on her own, and she poured her energy into transforming it into a hub for community connection. When Ryan first walked into the library, she saw him as just another patron. But it didn't take long for him to differentiate himself. He wasn't just polite, he was genuinely interested, or so it seemed. "I've always thought libraries were sanctuaries," Ryan told her one afternoon as she helped him locate a book on regional history. "The way you've made this one so vibrant, it's inspiring." Aurora wasn't used to compliments about her work. Most people saw her as an extension of her family, not as an individual with her own accomplishments. Ryan's words felt refreshing, and his effortless charm began to erode the walls she had built around her heart. Over the next few weeks, Ryan became a regular fixture at the library. He often arrived with coffee for them both, apologizing for being too busy to spend more time there. But he always stayed just long enough to leave an impression, a witty remark, a thoughtful question, a lingering smile. By late March, he made his move, casually suggesting dinner at a local restaurant. Aurora hesitated at first. She wasn't sure if she wanted to mix her professional life with something more personal. But Ryan's disarming nature made it easy to say yes. Dinner with Ryan was a revelation. He spoke eloquently about his life, his work as a financial consultant, his love for literature, and his deep appreciation for history. He listened attentively as Aurora shared her aspirations for the library and her concerns about its funding. Ryan assured her that someone with her vision deserved more recognition. "You're not just preserving the past," he said, leaning forward with a sincerity that made her heart flutter. "You're building a legacy." By the time Ryan met Judge Thorne in May, he had already won Aurora's heart. The judge, a man known for his exacting standards, was initially skeptical of Ryan's polished demeanor. But Ryan knew how to play his role. He spoke with deference, praised Aurora's accomplishments, and even shared a story about how his own father had instilled in him the value of hard work, a story that was entirely fabricated but perfectly delivered. Judge Thorne wrote in his personal journal later that night, "Ryan Alcott appears to be a man of integrity and vision. Aurora may have found someone worthy of her." While Ryan played the role of a traditional gentleman for Aurora, his approach with Sophia Wilder was completely different. He presented himself as a modern thinker, someone who valued independence and creativity above all else. Ryan's first visit to the Wild Spruce Cafe seemed unremarkable. He had walked in on a busy morning, ordered a black coffee, and found a seat near the window. But over the next few weeks, he became a regular, always timing his visits to coincide with the cafe's quieter hours when Sophia worked the counter alone. "You've created something really special here," Ryan told her one day, gesturing around the cozy space filled with mismatched furniture and colorful artwork. "It feels like a place where ideas come to life." Sophia, used to casual compliments, found herself smiling. There was something different about Ryan. He wasn't just a customer, he seemed genuinely invested in her success. Over time, their conversations grew more personal. She told him about her struggles as a self-taught baker and her fears of being overshadowed by corporate coffee chains. Ryan always knew exactly what to say. "You don't need formal training," he told her one afternoon. "You've built this from the ground up, and that's more impressive than any certificate." Sophia began to see Ryan as more than just a patron. He became a confidant, someone she could talk to about her insecurities without feeling judged. He even offered her business advice, suggesting ways to expand the cafe's menu and attract more customers. She found herself looking forward to his visits, her heart skipping a beat every time the doorbell chimed and she saw him walk in. By late April, Ryan suggested they take their conversations outside the cafe. He invited Sophia to a wine tasting at a nearby vineyard, a setting he knew would appeal to her adventurous spirit. The evening was magical. Under the golden light of the setting sun, Ryan listened as Sophia spoke about her dreams of turning the wild spruce into a chain of artisanal cafes. "You're going to do incredible things, Sophia," he said, his voice soft but confident. "And I'd be honored to be part of your journey." Ryan's ability to balance his relationships with Aurora and Sophia was nothing short of masterful. To Aurora, he was the steady hand she could rely on, a man who respected her roots and shared her values. To Sophia, he was the wind beneath her wings, encouraging her to dream bigger and believe in herself. Each woman believed she had found her perfect match. What they didn't realize was that Ryan was carefully weaving a web of deception, using their vulnerabilities to bind them to him. His calculated moves weren't just about romance, they were steps in a larger game, one that would soon spiral into chaos. For now, though, Ryan reveled in the satisfaction of his double life. Each relationship fed his ego, each moment of manipulation a reminder of his control. What could go wrong when he had every detail under control? Ryan didn't know it yet, but the cracks in his facade were already beginning to form. By the summer of 2023, Ryan Alcott's web of lies had become a masterpiece of manipulation. With Aurora Thorne and Sophia Wilder firmly entangled in his charm, he set his most daring plan into motion, orchestrating 2 weddings, on the same day, just hours apart. For Ryan, this wasn't just about maintaining control, it was the ultimate challenge, a test of his ability to outmaneuver anyone who might uncover the truth. Ryan's relationships with Aurora and Sophia continued to flourish, but he knew he needed to carefully manage their expectations to avoid detection. To Aurora, he was the consummate gentleman, respectful, attentive, but burdened by the demands of his career and his ailing mother. "I wish I could spend more time here with you," he would tell her during their Wednesday night dinners. "But between my clients and caring for my mother in Keene, I'm stretched thin. Once we're married, things will calm down. I promise." Aurora, raised to value duty and family above all, admired his dedication. She never questioned why he could only see her on specific days, or why his phone calls were often brief and interrupted. With Sophia, Ryan played a different role. He was the supportive partner who celebrated her independence while gently guiding her dreams. He claimed his business frequently took him to Portland, Maine, a convenient excuse for his absences. "You're the reason I keep coming back to Ashbourne," he told her one evening over coffee. "Every time I'm away, I can't stop thinking about you and everything you're building here." Sophia, unaccustomed to such unwavering support, believed him. His ability to seamlessly balance both lives was a testament to his meticulous planning and his cold, calculated nature. Ryan proposed to Aurora in early September 2023 during a weekend trip to Lake Champlain, choosing a picturesque spot by the water at sunset. The ring, which he claimed was a family heirloom, was actually purchased from an antique dealer in Boston, a fact he had carefully hidden by using an associate's name on the receipt. Aurora's family was elated, particularly Judge Thorne, who saw Ryan as the ideal match for his daughter. Plans for a grand, traditional wedding at St. Margaret's Chapel began immediately, with a date set for November 12, 2023. Just a month later, Ryan proposed to Sophia in a completely different style. One evening after closing, he surprised her at the Wild Spruce Cafe, getting down on one knee among the cozy, dimly lit tables. The ring, a sleek, contemporary design, was purchased online, chosen to reflect Sophia's modern tastes. Sophia was ecstatic. She began planning an outdoor ceremony at Meadowcrest Gardens, a location Ryan had conveniently suggested, for the exact same date, November 12, 2023. Ryan assured her that he wanted her to have her dream wedding and that he trusted her to make the arrangements. To pull off his audacious plan, Ryan relied on an intricate schedule and a series of lies that kept both women in the dark. His carefully maintained routine involved distinct roles and behaviors tailored to each relationship. Mondays and Thursdays, dedicated to Sophia under the guise of working remotely in Ashbourne. He spent these mornings at the Wild Spruce Cafe, reinforcing their bond. Wednesdays and weekends, reserved for Aurora, under the pretense that these were the only times his work allowed him to return from Keene. Their evenings were spent over quiet dinners or community events. Tuesdays and Fridays, Ryan's buffer days. He used these to handle actual work, maintain alibis, and ensure his schedule remained seamless. Ryan managed his double life through a meticulously organized system. He kept 2 separate phones, each with its own contact list and message history. He used different email addresses and even created distinct social media profiles for each persona, ensuring that Aurora and Sophia would never stumble across the other. As the wedding dates approached, Ryan encountered several close calls that tested his ability to maintain control. In late September, both Aurora and Sophia happened to visit the same florist, Ashbourne Blooms, on the same day. They missed each other by mere minutes, but the florist, Dahlia Chen, later remarked to Ryan about the coincidence. 2 brides with a groom named Ryan. Small world, she joked. Ryan laughed it off, his charm disarming any suspicion. Sophia's wedding photographer accidentally double-booked with Aurora's ceremony. Ryan intercepted the issue, ensuring the photographer rescheduled Sophia's shoot without either bride knowing. In early November, Aurora and Sophia both attended a local business networking event. Ryan, aware of the overlap, fabricated a last-minute, client emergency, to avoid escorting either woman. He spent the evening frantically texting both to ensure they stayed in different parts of the venue. Ryan's plan for the day of November 12 was nothing short of audacious. He scheduled Aurora's wedding at St. Margaret's Chapel for 11 a.m. and Sophia's outdoor ceremony at Meadowcrest Gardens for 2 p.m. His strategy was to attend Aurora's ceremony, slip away during the reception under the pretense of a business emergency, and arrive at Sophia's event just in time to say, "I do." He even prepared post-wedding logistics. 2 houses. He had purchased 2 homes under different LLCs, one in Ashbourne for Aurora, and another in Keene for Sophia. Travel excuse. He planned to tell each wife that his work required him to travel frequently, allowing him to divide his time between 2 households. In Ryan's mind, the plan was flawless. His ability to juggle 2 lives, orchestrate 2 weddings, and keep his secrets buried was a testament to his self-proclaimed genius. But as the clock ticked closer to November 12, small cracks began to form in his carefully constructed facade. He dismissed the warning signs, a curious florist, a near miss at a networking event, as minor inconveniences. After all, he had always been able to talk his way out of any situation. Why would this time be any different? What Ryan didn't anticipate was how one seemingly insignificant moment, a casual encounter between 2 strangers, would unravel everything he had worked so hard to build. November 12, 2023, began as the perfect autumn day in Ashbourne, Vermont. Golden sunlight streamed through the trees, illuminating the vibrant orange and red leaves that blanketed the town. The weather was unseasonably mild, a blessing for both the traditional indoor ceremony planned at St. Margaret's Chapel and the outdoor nuptials scheduled at Meadowcrest Gardens. To everyone involved, it seemed like the universe was aligning for two beautiful weddings. But in reality, it was aligning for chaos. At St. Margaret's Chapel, Aurora Thorne was in the bridal suite, surrounded by her bridesmaids. Dressed in a stunning lace gown that had once belonged to her grandmother, she radiated elegance and happiness. Her father, Judge Lawrence Thorne, paced the hallway outside, rehearsing his speech for the reception. The Thorne family had spared no expense for the occasion, and the church was filled with fresh flowers and neatly dressed guests. Across town at Meadowcrest Gardens, Sophia Wilder was in the preparation room, laughing with her best friend, Fiona Rivera. Sophia's dress was a reflection of her personality, simple yet striking, with a modern cut that flowed gracefully as she moved. The gardens were alive with anticipation, tables adorned with rustic centerpieces and string lights ready to glow as the sun set. Ryan Alcott, the architect of this elaborate deceit, had spent the previous night at a rented Airbnb, strategically located halfway between the two venues. He had carefully mapped out every detail of his schedule: arrive at St. Margaret's Chapel by 10:30 a.m., leave discreetly by 12:30 p.m., and reach Meadowcrest Gardens by 1:30 p.m. He had even accounted for wardrobe changes, with separate suits prepared for each ceremony. For Ryan, the day was not about love or celebration, it was the culmination of a carefully executed plan, his magnum opus. At 8:45 a.m., Fiona Rivera made a quick detour to Maple Brew, a small coffee shop in downtown Ashbourne. She wanted to pick up breakfast for the bridal party, hoping to surprise Sophia with her favorite pumpkin spice lattes. The cafe was bustling with activity as other wedding guests, unknowingly connected to both events, grabbed their morning caffeine fixes. Among them was Bella Thorne, Aurora's cousin, dressed in a sleek navy gown and carrying a garment bag over her arm. Fiona recognized Bella immediately. They had met once at a town event, and waved cheerfully. "Bella. Wow, you look amazing. Are you going to an event today?" Fiona asked casually as they waited in line. Bella beamed with excitement. "Yes. My cousin Aurora is getting married at St. Margaret's this morning. It's such a big day for the Thorne family." Fiona's smile froze. The name Aurora wasn't familiar, but the mention of St. Margaret's caught her attention. "Congratulations. Who's the lucky groom?" she asked, her voice tight with an unease she couldn't explain. "Oh, Ryan Alcott," Bella said, adjusting the strap of her bag. "He's amazing, so charming and kind. We're all so thrilled for Aurora." Fiona's heart stopped. For a moment, she thought she had misheard. "Ryan Alcott?" she repeated slowly. "Yes." Bella replied brightly. "Do you know him?" Fiona didn't respond. Her mind was racing, the name reverberating in her head. It couldn't be. It had to be a coincidence. But Ryan wasn't a common name, and Alcott even less so. Fiona barely managed to stammer out a polite goodbye before rushing out of the cafe, her tray of coffees forgotten. By 9 a.m., Fiona was speeding toward Meadowcrest Gardens, her hands trembling as she gripped the steering wheel. She couldn't shake the feeling that something was horribly wrong. As soon as she parked, she pulled out her phone and called Sophia, who was still in the bridal suite. "Soph, we need to talk," Fiona said, her voice urgent. "What's wrong?" Sophia asked, alarmed by Fiona's tone. "Who's Ryan Alcott?" Fiona demanded, her words tumbling out in a rush. "Do you know if he's connected to a family named Thorne? Because I just met someone who said he's marrying their cousin this morning." There was a pause on the other end of the line. What are you talking about? Sophia said, her voice laced with confusion. Ryan's at a client meeting this morning. He's coming here at 1:30. There must be some mistake. But Fiona's conviction was unwavering. Sophia, you need to check. Call him. Right now. Sophia hesitated, but the urgency in Fiona's voice pushed her into action. She dialed Ryan's number, but it went straight to voicemail. Panic began to creep in. She tried again, and then again, but there was no response. Meanwhile, Bella had arrived at St. Margaret's Chapel and mentioned her encounter with Fiona to her aunt, Vanessa Thorne. Vanessa, ever the poised matriarch, sensed that something was amiss. She relayed the information to Judge Thorne, who immediately ordered a member of the family to discreetly confirm Ryan's whereabouts. Within minutes, one of the groomsmen had accessed Ryan's social media profiles and found recent photos tagged with Sophia Wilder, all taken at the Wild Spruce Cafe. What in the world is going on? Judge Thorne muttered, his face darkening as he pieced together the puzzle. His anger simmered beneath the surface, but it was clear he intended to confront Ryan directly. By 10:15 a.m., both Aurora and Sophia were spiraling into panic. Aurora, still unaware of the full truth, began receiving frantic whispers from her bridesmaids about the discrepancies in Ryan's background. Sophia, on the other hand, was pacing in her dressing room, trying to suppress the growing dread in her chest. At the same time, Ryan arrived at St. Margaret's Chapel, confident that his plan was still intact. As he stepped out of his car, Judge Thorne was waiting for him, his face a mask of fury. The first cracks in Ryan's carefully constructed facade were about to shatter, and with them, the lives of everyone he had so carefully deceived. At 10:30 a.m., the air outside St. Margaret's Chapel was thick with tension. Guests were beginning to arrive, their conversations punctuated by laughter and the occasional flutter of excitement. Inside, Aurora Thorne was seated in front of a gilded mirror, her bridesmaids fixing the final details of her veil. Her radiant smile hid the growing unease that had been gnawing at her since the whispers began. Something felt wrong, though she couldn't yet name it. Meanwhile, in the parking lot, Judge Lawrence Thorne stood face to face with Ryan Alcott. The typically composed judge was seething, his fists clenched tightly by his sides. Ryan, ever the master manipulator, greeted him with his usual charm. "Judge Thorne," Ryan said, extending a hand. "I didn't expect to see you out here." But Lawrence didn't take the hand. His voice was low, almost a growl. "Ryan, we need to talk. Now." The confrontation was swift and unrelenting. The judge, known for his sharp intellect in the courtroom, had spent the last 30 minutes piecing together the truth. The photos tagged with Sophia Wilder, the whispered accusations, and the discrepancies in Ryan's stories had all led to one conclusion: Ryan was not the man he claimed to be. "You've been lying to my daughter," Lawrence spat, his voice rising. "Who is Sophia Wilder? And why does she think she's marrying you today?" Ryan's smile faltered, but only for a moment. He quickly regained his composure, slipping into the role of the misunderstood victim. "Judge, I don't know where you're getting this, but there's clearly been a misunderstanding. Let's not ruin Aurora's big day over some baseless rumors." But Lawrence wasn't buying it. "Don't insult my intelligence. I've seen the photos. I know you've been playing both of these women." His voice grew louder, drawing the attention of several guests milling around outside the chapel. "You're a liar, Ryan. A fraud." Ryan took a step back, calculating his next move. The cracks in his plan were becoming fissures, but he wasn't ready to give up. "Judge Thorne, I love your daughter," he said, his voice smooth but firm. "Everything I've done has been for her. I don't know who's feeding you this nonsense, but—" "You don't get to talk about love," Lawrence interrupted, his face red with fury. "You've manipulated her, used her, and made a mockery of my family. I want you out of this town. Now." While the confrontation escalated, a car screeched to a halt in front of the chapel. The door flew open, and out stepped Sophia Wilder, still in her wedding dress, her face a mask of determination and betrayal. Fiona Rivera followed closely behind, her phone clutched tightly in her hand, ready to show the damning evidence they had uncovered. The scene at the chapel quickly devolved into chaos. Aurora, now alerted by the commotion outside, rushed to the doors just as Sophia stormed into the courtyard. The two women locked eyes, each recognizing the devastation mirrored in the other's expression. "You," Sophia hissed at Ryan, her voice trembling with rage. "You lied to me. You've been lying to both of us." Aurora turned to Ryan, her voice barely a whisper. "Tell me this isn't true." Ryan opened his mouth to respond, but before he could speak, Judge Thorne stepped between him and Aurora, shielding his daughter. "You don't get to talk to her," he barked. "Not after what you've done." Guests began to gather around, their murmurs growing louder as the truth unraveled before them. Ryan, now cornered, raised his hands defensively. "Everyone, please, let's not blow this out of proportion. There's an explanation." "There's no explanation for this," Sophia snapped, holding up Fiona's phone. The screen displayed a series of photos: Ryan at the Wild Spruce Cafe, Ryan holding hands with Sophia, Ryan proposing to her just months earlier. "You're a liar, a coward, and a cheat." As the crowd pressed closer, Ryan's confident facade began to crumble. He backed away toward his car, his mind racing for a way out. But Judge Thorne wasn't finished. Fueled by a mix of fury and protective instinct, the judge advanced on Ryan. "You think you can just walk away from this?" Lawrence demanded, his voice booming. "You've destroyed my daughter's life. You're going to face the consequences." Ryan's expression shifted from panic to something darker. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a handgun, a precaution he had taken for emergencies, though he never thought he'd need it. The sight of the weapon sent a collective gasp through the crowd. "Stay back!" Ryan shouted, his voice shaking. He waved the gun erratically, his control slipping. "I don't want to hurt anyone, but you're not giving me a choice." Aurora screamed, clutching her mother's arm as the situation spiraled out of control. Sophia stood frozen, her hands balled into fists, tears streaming down her face. Judge Thorne, however, refused to back down. He took another step forward, his eyes locked on Ryan. "Put the gun down, Ryan. You don't want to make this worse." But Ryan, overwhelmed by the weight of his lies and the realization that his plan had fallen apart, stumbled. His finger tensed on the trigger, and the gun discharged. The sound of the shot echoed through the courtyard. Judge Thorne collapsed to the ground, blood spreading across his chest. A stunned silence fell over the crowd before erupting into chaos. Guests screamed, some running for cover, others rushing to help. Ryan, horrified by what he had done, didn't have time to react before Sophia's brother, an ex-military man, lunged at him. In the ensuing struggle, the gun went off again, this time striking Ryan in the neck. As paramedics arrived minutes later, they found Judge Thorne bleeding out on the chapel steps and Ryan unconscious on the ground. Aurora and Sophia, both still in their wedding dresses, stood frozen in shock, their lives irrevocably changed. Judge Lawrence Thorne was pronounced dead at the scene. Ryan Alcott succumbed to his injuries hours later at the hospital, leaving behind a trail of deceit, heartbreak, and unanswered questions. Two weddings meant to celebrate love had instead become the setting for tragedy, their promises shattered by one man's web of lies. In the days following the tragedy at St. Margaret's Chapel, Ashbourne was plunged into shock and mourning. What had started as a celebration of love had spiraled into violence and death, leaving the community grappling with questions about how one man could orchestrate such an elaborate scheme undetected. As investigators dug deeper into Ryan Alcott's life, the layers of his deception unraveled, revealing a mind more calculated and sinister than anyone had imagined. The first priority for law enforcement was piecing together the events leading up to the double wedding disaster. Detective Caleb Harper, a veteran investigator from the Vermont State Police, led the charge. The scene at the chapel was chaotic: discarded floral arrangements, blood-stained cobblestones, and shell-shocked guests who struggled to process what they had witnessed. Detective Harper began his work methodically, interviewing Aurora Thorne, Sophia Wilder, and their families. Both women recounted eerily similar stories of how Ryan had swept them off their feet, how he had tailored his personality to perfectly match their dreams. What struck Harper the most was the precision of Ryan's lies. He hadn't simply told stories, he had built entire lives around them. This wasn't just a man juggling two relationships, Harper told reporters days later. This was someone who viewed manipulation as an art form. A search of Ryan's Victorian home on the outskirts of Ashbourne yielded the first major breakthrough. Hidden in a wall safe behind a bookshelf, investigators found a leather-bound journal. Its contents were chilling: a meticulously kept record of Ryan's schemes, written with the detachment of a chess player documenting his moves. The journal detailed scoring system: Ryan awarded himself points for successfully deceiving his targets. Each time he avoided suspicion or navigated a close call, he wrote about it with pride. Dual wedding plan: dubbed the ultimate challenge, Ryan's plan to marry two women on the same day was described as a test of his ability to manage chaos and control outcomes. He wrote about the thrill of the deception, calling it the pinnacle of his manipulative prowess. Profiles of victims: Aurora and Sophia's vulnerabilities were catalogued with clinical precision. Aurora's need for stability, Sophia's craving for validation, Ryan had exploited these with surgical accuracy. Digital forensics revealed another layer of Ryan's operation. Investigators cracked the encryption on two of his phones and uncovered a treasure trove of evidence. Multiple identities: Ryan had created separate email addresses, social media accounts, and even bank accounts for each relationship. Each identity was carefully curated to match the persona he presented to Aurora and Sophia. Automated messaging: to maintain his double life, Ryan used automated responses to manage texts and calls when he was with one fiancée and needed to appear unavailable to the other. Tracking and surveillance: perhaps most disturbingly, Ryan had installed hidden cameras in both the Wild Spruce Cafe and Aurora's library office. He monitored their movements, ensuring his schedule remained airtight and that neither woman would accidentally discover the other. As the investigation expanded, forensic accountants uncovered that Ryan's deception extended beyond his romantic life. His financial dealings revealed a sophisticated Ponzi scheme. Fraudulent insurance sales: Ryan had been using his position as a financial consultant to sell fake insurance policies. Premiums from new clients were used to pay off earlier investors, creating the illusion of a successful business. Stolen funds: over $2 million had been funneled into personal accounts under shell corporations. This money financed his lavish lifestyle, including the two weddings and the properties he had purchased for each woman. Plans for escape: travel documents found in Ryan's office indicated that he had been preparing to flee to Venezuela, a country without an extradition treaty with the United States. His departure was planned for 3 weeks after the weddings, leaving both wives behind with no way to track him. Just when it seemed the case couldn't become more convoluted, investigators discovered a third fiancée, Veronica Reyes, living in Portland, Maine. Veronica, a pediatric nurse, had been dating Ryan for 6 months and had no idea about Aurora or Sophia. Text messages recovered from Ryan's third phone showed he had already begun laying the groundwork for a third wedding, planned for the following year. He told me his mother was terminally ill, Veronica revealed during her interview with Detective Harper. He said he wanted to wait until she passed before we started our life together. Veronica's testimony painted a picture of a man whose manipulations knew no bounds. She described how Ryan had promised her a life of love and stability, all while siphoning money from her under the guise of joint investments. Further digging into Ryan's background unearthed patterns of manipulation that stretched back to his teenage years. His estranged mother, Cassandra Olcott, who had retreated to a luxury retirement community in Florida, agreed to speak with investigators after years of silence. Ryan learned early on how to pit people against each other, Cassandra admitted. Even as a child, he'd lie to get what he wanted. By the time he was 12, he was running scams on me and his father, convincing each of us the other had agreed to give him money. Cassandra's interview revealed that Ryan's father's death had only exacerbated his tendencies. Left unchecked, his manipulative behavior evolved from familial conflicts to romantic and financial fraud. Among the most chilling discoveries was a fully equipped surveillance room in Ryan's second property in Keene, New Hampshire. The room contained live feeds, cameras installed in Aurora's and Sophia's workplaces fed directly into monitors in the room. Escape routes, detailed maps of Ashbourne and Portland marked with potential escape routes and safe houses. A second journal. This journal contained notes on high-profile clients he planned to blackmail, using personal information he had gathered under the guise of professional consultations. Ryan's death meant he would never face justice for his crimes, but the investigation left a lasting impact. The FBI used his case as a template for identifying relationship fraud and financial exploitation. Detective Harper's final report concluded. Ryan Olcott wasn't just a conman. He was a predator who thrived on control and manipulation. His ability to construct entire lives around his lies is both a cautionary tale and a call to vigilance. For Aurora and Sophia, the revelations were devastating. Their lives had been shattered, their trust violated. Yet, in their shared grief, they found an unexpected bond, a friendship forged in the fire of betrayal. The case of Ryan Olcott became a national story, not just for its shocking twists but for the questions it raised about human vulnerability. How could one man deceive so many for so long? How did he balance such an intricate web of lies? The answers, perhaps, lay in Ryan's own chilling words, scrawled in the margins of his journal. People want to believe in love. All you have to do is give them what they want, until it's too late. In the months following the events at St. Margaret's Chapel, the community of Ashbourne, Vermont, struggled to move on. The double wedding that had turned into a double tragedy left scars that would linger for years. For those closest to the incident, however, the aftermath was not just a period of mourning but also a time of reflection, healing, and rebuilding. Aurora Thorne and Sophia Wilder, two women who had been strangers on the morning of November 12, found themselves bound together in the wake of Ryan Olcott's betrayal. At first, their connection was tenuous, marked by shared grief and anger. Both had lost more than a potential husband that day. They had lost their sense of trust, security, and belief in their own judgment. Aurora retreated to her family's estate, finding solace in the routines of the library she had built. She spent weeks poring over the details of the investigation, trying to understand how she could have been so blind to Ryan's lies. Her father's death weighed heavily on her. She blamed herself for bringing Ryan into their lives. Sophia, meanwhile, closed the Wild Spruce Cafe, unable to face the curious onlookers and reporters who flocked to Ashbourne after the story broke. She spent her days sorting through memories of her time with Ryan, vacillating between anger and heartbreak. The cafe, once her sanctuary, had become a painful reminder of his manipulation. It wasn't until 3 months later, at the unveiling of a memorial for Judge Lawrence Thorne, that the two women spoke again. Their conversation began awkwardly but soon gave way to tears, then laughter. By the end of the evening, they had made a pact, to support each other as they rebuilt their lives. Aurora began assisting Sophia with reopening the cafe, helping her redesign the space into something new, something untouched by Ryan's shadow. In turn, Sophia encouraged Aurora to establish a scholarship fund in her father's name, honoring his legacy by supporting students pursuing law and public service. Together, they turned their shared pain into something meaningful. Despite his death, Ryan Olcott's actions continued to ripple through the lives he had touched. The financial fraud investigation revealed that he had defrauded over 20 clients, stealing millions under the guise of legitimate investments. With the FBI's help, approximately $1.4 million was recovered and returned to the victims, though many were left reeling from the betrayal. Ryan's story also became a national case study, used by law enforcement and psychologists to better understand the psychology of manipulative individuals. His journals, with their cold, calculating entries, were dissected in academic papers and seminars. They painted a picture of a man who saw human connection not as a source of joy but as a game to be mastered. For the residents of Ashbourne, the incident served as a grim reminder that even in a close-knit community, deception can flourish. The town held a series of workshops on recognizing manipulation and protecting against fraud, determined to prevent such a tragedy from happening again. As Aurora and Sophia worked to rebuild their lives, their story became a beacon for others who had experienced betrayal. They spoke publicly about their journey, emphasizing the importance of trust, not blind trust, but trust tempered with caution and self-awareness. "Ryan took advantage of our vulnerabilities," Aurora said during a community event. "But he didn't define us. What defines us is how we've chosen to move forward." Sophia echoed the sentiment. "He thought he could break us, but instead, he brought us together. That's the only legacy of his that matters." Their courage inspired others to share their own experiences with manipulation, turning their pain into a source of strength for others. The story of Ryan Alcott is both shocking and heartbreaking, a tale of deception, betrayal, and the resilience of the human spirit. But it also raises important questions. Could you recognize a manipulator like Ryan in your own life? What would you do if you discovered someone you trusted was living a double life? Do you think Aurora and Sophia handled the aftermath in the best way possible? What would you have done differently? What lessons can we all learn from this story about trust, vulnerability, and resilience? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Share your opinions in the comments below and let us know what you think about Aurora and Sophia's journey, Ryan's manipulations, and the shocking twists of this case. Your insights could help someone else recognize the signs of a toxic relationship or a manipulative individual. This isn't just a story, it's a reminder to look closer, trust wisely, and stand strong in the face of betrayal. Let us know what you think, and thank you for watching.